Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Pickleball Crew. We are a group of pickleball fanatics based in southeast Louisiana and are passionate about all things pickleball everywhere. Our focus is to inform, acknowledge those who help build the game regionally, and promote tournaments in our area. We do our best to present this with a love of the sport, a sense of humor, and a lot of fun. So join Vicki Wynn, Ken Wynn, Jeff Fuchsia, and me, Bud Klein, in our latest episode. We are glad you are along for the ride. As always, Ken will start us off with his review and updates of local tournaments. In this episode, the crew is getting back to its roots, and we'll be discussing all things of the Dink. Jeff shares another one of his Burrs Under My Saddle. Vicki will share a special shout out to the creator of her new segment illustration. The crew was excited to get back to an old-fashioned roundtable discussion, so this should be an interesting episode. Well, hello, crew. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Pickleball Crew. We're on our 20th episode this week, and always we start with Ken and his tournament review.
Hey, thanks, Bud. Let's get started with October. October is chock full of tournaments. October, April, those are two of the biggest tournament months. Most of the tournaments are full as far as a registration standpoint. I found one at Pops Ferry in Biloxi. This is October 21st and 22nd. It's called the PCKL Gulf Coast Championship at Pops Ferry. Go to pickleballbrackets.com to register. There's already 83 people registered. It's $60 per person. There's gender doubles on Saturday, mixed doubles on Sunday. We'll have more information at the bottom of the screen on that PCKL Gulf Coast Championships. Let's go to November. November is really full. November 3rd through 5th is the Louisiana State Games in Monroe, Louisiana. Go to pickleballbrackets.com. This is a qualifier for the 2024 State Games of America, which will be held in San Diego, California. It should be a fun time. I have not played in the State Games, so we're looking forward to hearing more about that. The same weekend, November 4th and 5th, is the Louisiana Senior Games. This will be at the Greenwood Tennis Center and Pickleball Courts in Baker, Louisiana. We're going to put the URL at the bottom. If you're 50 and over, have never played in senior games, it's a fun event. This is not a qualifying year, so there will not be singles, I'm told. But go to the URL at the bottom of the screen and register for the Louisiana Senior Games. The same weekend, November 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, is the 9th Annual Tennis and Pickleball Fundraiser. This is www.raphaelvillage.org. Thursday night, November 2nd will be a patron party at the Exchange. If you go to the URL, you can donate, you can register, find out all the information. It's going to be at the City Park Tennis Center. There are now 4 permanent pickleball courts there. They're probably going to expand that along with using all the tennis courts for the fundraiser. So that should be a good time. Also, the same weekend, this is a tournament that we were promoting a while back, and it kind of fell off the radar. It's back on the radar. November 3rd through 5th is the Canebrake Country Club tournament. There's 12 new outdoor pickleball courts. It's in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Go to pickleballbrackets.com to register. This is $70 per person. Here's the interesting spin on this one. There's a minimum of $400 prize money per open event pool. That's with a minimum of 8 teams. So one of the few tournaments giving prize money out. Again, it's at the Canebrake Country Club, November 3rd through 5th, and go to pickleballbrackets.com. Also, November 11th and 12th at W.O. Lott Park is the Tom Burkhart Magnolia Classic. Tom Burkhart himself will be there. It's worth the trip just to sit and talk to the gentleman. He's had so much to do with promoting pickleball in Louisiana, and the Magnolia Classic team are honoring him with this tournament. Registration is open. There's already 72 people registered. It's an MMP event, which means Medal Match Plus. The finals and some of the semifinals will be refereed. And go to pickleballbrackets.com to register for the Tom Burkhart Magnolia Classic. 1 week later, November 18th, this is a one-day tournament called Share Your Spare. It's also at the Greenwood Tennis Center Pickleball Courts in Baker. We'll put the URL at the bottom of the screen for that one. Moving to December 1st through 3rd, second annual Boys Ranch Christmas Classic. Tom Hockard and his team does a great job with this. This is the second year of the tournament. This year they're holding it at Fritchie Park Gym in Slidell, Louisiana. Again, pickleballbrackets.com to register. They've already have over 14 people registered for it. It's going to be the first weekend in December. It's going to be a fun time. A social on Friday night with open play, gender doubles on Saturday, mixed doubles on Sunday. The following weekend, December 9th, 10th, is the second annual Americana YMCA Pickleball Invitational. This is the Chase Rigdon Tournament. Magnolia Classic is going to help run it. It's going to be in Zachary, Louisiana at the YMCA. Again, go to pickleballbrackets.com to register. This is a USAP sanctioned event, and registration has opened. The following weekend, December 15th through 17th, Pickle Jazz Pickleball Tournament, also at the Greenwood Tennis Center and Pickleball Courts in Baker, Louisiana. $35 gets you 2 events. We're going to put the URL at the bottom. It's fairly long, so you can go there and register for that. The Pickle Jazz Pickleball Tournaments. Real quickly, save the dates. 2024, February 27th through March 3rd. Paddles at the Plex, Opelika. That's always a fun time. March 22nd, 24th, 2024 is Pickle in the Dell. This will be at Crossgates in Slidell, Louisiana. The next weekend, March 29th, 30th, is the Alabama Open at Clay, Alabama. And here's one, save the date. This is April 12th through 14th. This is going to be at Tatum Park in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Again, go to pickleballbrackets.com. There's already 34 people registered. This is going to be a fun event. Marlena Mims is running it. Open play on Friday the 12th. Gender doubles on Saturday the 13th. And mixed doubles on Sunday the 14th. So anyway, that wraps it up for tournament news and updates, Bud. Back to you.
All right, Ken, thanks for that tournament review. Informative as always. And now the group's just going to jump into a little discussion, and Jeff's going to start us off.
All right, this week we kind of got together and figured we would talk about the ins and outs of dinking. I'm going to start off with just some basics that maybe some of the 2-5, 3-0 players don't know about. I know that I had been playing probably 10 months, 11 months to a year before somebody told me this. When you're dinking, not just dinking, but a lot of your shots, if you watch pro players, they go cross court. So you definitely want to try to dink cross court when you can. The space is much tighter when you're trying to dink with somebody straight up. It's really tight there. So when you go cross court, not only is the net lower in the middle, but you also have more room for error there. But the other point I want to make on this starting out is when we say cross court, we're not just talking about wide cross court. We're also talking about cross court in the middle with the ball going back into the middle cross court or back wide. So I wanted to just open it up with that basic knowledge for those that maybe didn't know that, and then turn it over to y'all and kind of open the discussion up from there.
Well, I'm going to say that we do go over that middle part as a safety zone, that if you get pulled out wide, if your stance is not really good and you're not real comfortable, you're maybe having to reach a little bit or whatever, that hit cross but go towards the middle. It's just sort of a safety zone for us. So we practice that even in our drills. I think it's just something to get used to, that when you get uncomfortable and you get pulled out like that, rather than trying to put the ball away or anything like that, or going deep, you just hit the safety zone, which is that lower part of the net that you're talking about, Jeff, and hit the middle somewhere on the other side.
Yeah, I know for me, dinking straight on, I feel like that person is right in front of me, and I feel like my window of success is very small. It takes a lot of focus and concentration when I'm trying to move the person in front of me around. But when I'm dinking cross court, I'm a little more comfortable because I feel like not only can I dink to the center, but I can dink out wide, and I just have so many more feet added on to my area to drop a dink in. So I'm a little more comfortable. Plus, I think I can do a little bit more, and this may be me. I can do a little bit more with the ball. I have more area to move a person around going cross court than I do when they're right straight in front of me. So to me, I think a mixture of both during a match. You kind of have to read where your people are standing, your opponents are standing. But I like to start off with a cross dink wherever I can. That's where I feel most comfortable.
To me, learning to dink consistently and especially cross court has improved my game. And I'll tell you what, to me, it really helps when you're playing against the so-called bangers. If you can get into a dink and keep the dink going, that's the biggest thing. I think one of my problems is I get into a dink and I think I've got to make a winning shot off of it. And you just got to keep it going and stay with the point. To me, that's the most important thing.
It's really, you don't want to be the one to pull the trigger first. You have to have that patience. And early on, when I was just learning how to dink, which was probably 9 months to a year into my pickleball journey, because I really tried to stay with a harder game, a banger game, until I realized that I was getting beat quite easily by the advanced players who were dropping the ball at my feet, and I couldn't do anything with it. Then once I started dinking 1, 2, 3, and I would get nervous that I can't stay in this rally with them. So I would pull the trigger too early and hit it into the net. And that's where that practice comes in place, the drilling cross court and drilling straight ahead, because you've got to be able to stay in a 20 plus dink rally and not be the first one to pull the trigger and try to hit a hard shot where a hard shot doesn't exist.
Definitely. I think when we were first learning, Ken, we never heard the term pendulum swing. It wasn't until, maybe close to training time when we went for training to become coaches that you really heard so much more about the fundamentals of the swing, learning that pendulum swing. And to me, it took time. It took time for me to even begin to feel comfortable with it. So I think as coaches, it's something very important for us to teach very early on, to have patience up at that net like you're talking about, but also learn the fundamentals of that pendulum swing. And just as important, I was just reading an article that, they focused a lot on when you're going to pop up, because we see a lot of times we're trying to get into that dink battle, but inevitably somebody's going to pop the ball up. And so trying so hard not to be the person who does that. When does it happen most? And I think it's real important that we pay attention to when we're doing it. And most interesting thing that they said was that when the ball gets too close to you. So again, with that pendulum swing, we want to stay low. We want to have our body in a lower position, but we definitely want to hit that ball out in front of us. And it is when we get uncomfortable, we get jammed, that ball's too close to us, that we have a greater potential of popping that ball up.
Yeah, and that's where the drilling comes in. I know in our group, when we drill, we spend a lot of time on dinking, head on and cross court. And to me, the benefit there is the fact that you gain the confidence to stay in a continuous dinking rally with someone, and you don't feel like you have to hit a winner. That to me that's where the drilling really comes into benefit my game.
I want to make a couple points. One of them, Vicki, you were talking about going back to the middle as a safe zone, but also going back to the middle, cross court, on that person's inside leg is a very uncomfortable spot where you can win a lot of points depending on what level that you're playing at. Just putting it on that inside foot. If you don't believe me, get somebody to keep putting it there, because a while back, it's probably been 6 to 8 months ago, that was a spot that I really had trouble with. So I drilled the heck out of it. and got to where I was better at it. I'm not going to say I'm proficient all the time, but I'm a lot better at it than what I was. The next point that I want to make, Vicki, you're talking about how the ball gets on us. It jams us up. If you watch a pro dinking rally, you will see them open up and pivot either their left foot or their right foot to get in behind that ball, okay, to drop back and keep it in front of their paddle like you're talking about. The other thing that they do is it's a dink. They pause and they take their time. We're a lot of times, us and others, we're rushing that dink. It's a dink. It's not a fastball. So it's very important to drop step sometimes and get in behind that ball. Sometimes it's a slide to the right or a slide to the left, and then pause. And when you're working, when y'all are out there, when you're working on this, work on not hurrying, okay, and trying to get yourself set. And while you're getting yourself set, the last thing to do is pick a target. Pick a target where you're going to go with that ball, and that brings this to the forefront. It's a lot easier to send that dink back in the general area where it came from. Okay, if I get a cross court dink, I'm going to try most of the time either to go back wide cross court or on that toward that inset side leg, but toward the middle. So many times I see people trying to change the direction of the dink left and right, and they try to do it too much. That's a difficult shot. It's a shot that can be hit, but that is a more advanced shot. So with trying to be consistent, send that ball back to the same area that it came from, and you'll see your consistency go up.
Jeff, one of the things you pointed out to me the other day when we were playing was that when I was dinking, I was standing flat-footed, both feet pointed at the net. Parallel. And you told me take a step back. And boy, I'm going to tell you, that made a huge amount of difference because it just gives you that extra half a second or a second that you can think about where you want to put your shot and execute it. I used that a lot Sunday, and it was really, really effective.
One thing I found too, and I got this from watching the better players, I think you've got to bend your knees and catch the ball as low to the ground as possible, because sometimes that ball comes up with spin one way or another, and it may pull you, you're anticipating the ball coming up in a certain direction, and it may come up slightly, either a side spin or forward spin or back spin. So catching the ball, to me, as low to the ground as possible, bending your knees, and then using your knees as you're kind of standing up. That's really where you get some of the power from, and not really from your arm swinging, and loosen your grip a little bit too as well. So those are a couple of things that I've focused on. Is one main thing is catching the ball a little bit lower, and using my legs to help guide the ball back over.
I think especially when you're going to dink that volley, you have to get really low. You can't really do effective dinks in a volley if you're standing straight up.
Right.
You got to bend down and get low.
Any of us that drill, one of the most physical things you can do in drilling is dinking. It sounds crazy because it's the softest shot, but maybe hitting a bunch of ground strokes on the baseline where you're moving is maybe a little more physical. But if you dink for 30 minutes, you have had yourself a workout. And if you're doing it properly, like you guys just said, you've got to get down under that ball to lift it back up over the net. If you're just standing straight up and hitting flat on the backside of the ball, it's going to be a lot of errors in the net.
Simone Jardim loves to have her students when she's teaching, and she's talking about keeping it consistent and going back and forth cross court. She loves to challenge them to mix it up where you're putting it. Don't always put it in the same exact spot, which might be in the middle of the person's legs or whatever. She'll tell you to aim, left foot, right foot, right foot, or something. But that really is, it's challenging to do it, but it's such a great drill because it keeps you from just having that safety net, you're learning to put the ball in more than just one spot. I know it's a little bit more of an advanced drill, but I definitely have tried that with our group, and we'll continue to do it because I just think it's really important to kind of mix up where you're hitting it. Even though you may be hitting it, like you say, Jeff, sending it back to the person who's sending it to you, it's a way of mixing it up. One of the things too, Jeff, that you are so good at doing and challenging us, even in the drills, but challenging definitely in a match, because I've been on the opposite side of you, cross court. You manage to put the ball and continue to push your opponent. You push and push and push. The minute they feel comfortable right at that no volley line, they're having to take a step back and then move back in, a step back, move back in. And that push there and just keep going back and forth and doing it that way, it really can, you've got to stay so focused to stay consistent with that and stay in that battle.
Right.
Well, if the ball is bouncing in front of you and you're able to take your time and take it off the bounce, then all of a sudden your opponent sends that ball just a little bit further back toward that no volley zone, and you're it's right in between taking it out the air and letting it bounce. That may cause an error with your opponent where they reach down and end up popping that ball out because it was right in between a bouncer and the take it out of the air type of a shot. So pushing them back, you just don't keep laying it right to their feet. Laying it in a way that is going to bounce first. You kind of move them, or not just side to side, but moving them back. So that's a great point.
We're going to probably talk about this more in a couple weeks. I don't know when, but when we talk about transition. But another thing to remember about dinking is when you work your way to that line, you've got to take I don't want to say take a deep breath. You do need to breathe. But once you get to that line, kind of settle yourself down. Because a lot of times maybe you've driven the ball and then hit a fifth shot drop and you're running up to the line. Well, once you get there, you want to settle down and try to get comfortable. That's why sometimes as we're working our way to the line, one or more of the partners can be back off just a little bit. If they would go ahead and hit one more soft shot to get both people settled in on that line where, okay, now we can go to battle here at the dink line and get comfortable. I think that's important because I think we arrive there a lot of times and we got that adrenaline flow going or pump going, and we don't settle down. We arrive there, and I'm saying this, I do the same thing. I get there, I'm squeezing my paddle. Sometimes I have to tell myself, all right, once we get there, settle yourself down and start concentrating on hitting those soft shots, trying to move them around to try to create an opening for you or your partner to punch the ball through.
I make more mistakes at the kitchen line by being impatient and trying to hit a winning shot than I do staying in the point. And I'm learning that just keep the dink going, let the other guy get impatient and either pop it up or they try to hit a hard ground stroke on a bounce from a dink and they hit it right in the net. So to me, the biggest secret of dinking is don't stop.
Yeah, you have to relax. I agree, Jeff. I think it's just a natural. You don't want to be squeezing the daylights out of your paddle up there because you just rushed to get there and you don't know how to slow yourself down. Besides that, the more successful dinks you're going to make are the ones where you're in that relaxed position. You have less of a tight grip on your paddle. You just slow yourself down. Take that pause. I agree. I think that is the key to doing it and doing it well.
Yeah, Vicki, you make a good point. I think probably the reason I dink so well now is I've just got confidence in it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm confident that I can keep it going, that I don't have to rush, that there's no hurry. I don't have to hit a winning shot. All I have to do is just relax and keep the point going.
That's right. And isn't there a statistic that says the more times you hit the ball, the better the chance is that you're going to win the point?
Well, for sure. One of the things that they do in higher levels, if it's not going well for a certain team, you hear them say, or the announcer say, okay, they're speeding it up too quick. They need to try to elongate these points. And what they mean by that is stay in the dink battles and try to move them around to get a better opportunity. You know, if a wide dink opens up a gap and makes somebody pop up, but sometimes you have to go deeper into the point. If you're winning the points fast, play fast. You know, 3 or 4 dinks, move somebody around, send it to that guy's backhand, and go for it. But if you're not winning those points, then elongate the points. Try to stay in the point longer. That's what the pros do, so we can emulate that. I've seen it work. I've seen it work if you and your partner are both committed to doing it.
That's a good point, Jeff. I think one of the things as the match goes on, you have to identify your opponent's weakness in dinking. For me, most people, is backhand dink, is the backhand dink cross court.
Yeah.
So if you can get somebody into that battle, and sooner or later, they're going to hit it into the net. But again, for me, it's just confidence in being able to keep the point alive and not try to end it too soon.
Now, well, you guys did bring up a good point too, in that moving people around, that you may create a gap somewhere. And that's like one of my absolute favorite things, is to try to create that gap down the middle. Most of the time, I think people are going to be very successful at moving together, but not everybody does. And so there are times when you can move one person out a little wider, and the very next shot, you've got a nice gap down the middle. I think that's part of the whole strategy up there. There's so many fun things to watch pros do, and that's what they do so well, is they structure their points. They try to structure the points and try to create those openings. It's not just hanging on for the other party to get bored with it or make a mistake. It's also trying to create that offense and get that opportunity to put the ball away.
I think when you're dinking, I think moving a person, making a person have to kind of take a step, moving them and not hitting the dink right in the same spot over and over again. I think a lot of people, when they get set at that no volley zone, and it's happened to me before too, is that you almost get set and your feet can be in cement. And by hitting a shot just outside your paddle reach, you're going to catch them not ready to move, or they're going to reach for the ball instead of taking a step, which could cause an errant hit on their part. They pop it up or they hit it into the net. So I think it's good to, it's okay to hit 1 or 2 right where they are, where their paddle is, but then hit one a little further wide, back to the center, and force that person to move and move and get into a position to hit the next shot. So see if you can catch them off guard a little bit.
Yeah, that's bringing up one of my new pet peeves, and it mainly because I know I used to do it, but now when we're dinking and I have to go wide to do a dink, and the other team dinks it right down the middle, and I look over at my partner and they didn't move. They're just standing there, and the gap between us is 10 feet wide. Neither one of us could have got the shot back. Man, you got to move. When your partner goes wide to dink cross court or even head on, you got to move to the middle.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
Your partner definitely has to close down on the tee when they're pulling you wide, if I'm your partner, and vice versa. If there's a lot of moving back and forth, it's kind of a ballet, a movement, a dance almost, with partners staying linked together as you're sliding back and forth, triangulating the ball, trying to keep that ball, keeping you two in the position best to receive the next shot from your opponent.
If nothing else, don't give them an alley to shoot for.
Right.
When you don't move and your partner's wide doing a cross court dink, you just given the alley my grandma could hit a ball through.
I didn't know she played.
Well,
Bud.
I'm starting to find that there's several players out at Pelican Park that are learning to master to put spin on that ball and send it cross court, but so wide, so close to the net, and so wide and so hard that there's like no chance to get it. And those are just incredible shots. really are.
But you
Well,
got to be careful on those really, really acute cross court dinks. I did 2 of them over the weekend that I thought were just great cross court dinks, only to have an ATP come back at us. So that's knowing your opponent. And that's something I've got to work on, to not have, if I do cross court, not have the ball bounce so far wide that as it's coming up off of its bounce, it's now outside of the net area. You almost want a cross court dink with the ball bouncing toward the center of the no volley zone, so that it doesn't give them an easy ATP at least. So,
Ken, that to me, that speaks volumes to how our group has improved. I mean, think about it. 6 months ago, how many people even tried an ATP?
right.
Even tried it, let alone do it. And now we're doing it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just because we've learned that you've got the time when that dink goes wide that you can come around with that ATP. And now I'm even seeing people who are learning to defend it quite well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, again, that just speaks to the improvement that people are making.
If there's any words to anybody, beginner to advanced, is spend the time getting comfortable dinking, because as you come across the higher level players, you've got to be ready to hang in there on a dink rally. So
the rest of our shots from further back are nothing but a long dink. A drop shot from the baseline is nothing more than a long dink. It's up in the air and it's slow. You get those fundamentals up by the net and just start working your way back. I mean, it can build your game.
Very true.
All right, gang, that was a great discussion. I hope our audience enjoys it. And now it's time for Jeff's Burr Under My Saddle.
You're a burr under my saddle. You're a thorn sticking in my side.
All right. This week's Burr Under My Saddle. I don't remember how many weeks ago it was, but I kind of got after some of the higher level players about, hey, give some lower level players a game every now and then. I'm not saying play all the time with them, but throw them a game every now and then. It really means a lot to them. This week, I'm gonna kind of get after the lower level players a little bit. The Burr Under My Saddle is I'll get out there, warm up with dinks, straight ahead, warm up with dinks cross court, and then several people will come onto the court, and I'll play 3 or 4 games, and the longest dink battle I've been in is 3 to 4 shots because there's so much banging of the ball. That's just not fun, y'all, for higher level players. Higher level players can hit the ball hard, but if you notice, the higher level that play goes, the more dink battles there are in those games. So if you're a lower level player and you're wondering why some higher level players don't necessarily want to give you many games, you might need to take a look at your game and, one, maybe start drilling, trying to get better. But 2, when you get out in those games, don't become the bang master and try every risky shot that comes to you. Higher level players do not try risky shots, but every so often they're going with consistency. So that's what this week's Burr Under My Saddle.
And I think we all agree with that one.
I kind of got after the higher level players a few weeks ago, but I just wanted to kind of balance it out. There's ways of looking at things from higher level, from lower level. I don't know if my opinion or our opinion is right, but I'm just throwing that out there. Food for thought.
It's good food for thought. Thanks for sharing.
Hey, bud, I've got a shout out. All righty. I just have one shout out to Anthony, although we know him as Sid Parfait. And just want to give him a big shout out to everything that he's doing for pickleball in the New Orleans area. For those of you who don't see him, be surprised because he's sending out a lot of materials right now, a lot of things on Facebook. He's established groups, playing groups down there. He's just really doing a lot. And from what I understand, he's working on a logo. He's obviously very good with a computer, working on a logo for the Slidell Pickleball Association. And special shout out because he just created the Vicki shoutout logo. So I'm all excited about having that now. And we really do like it, Sid. It's adorable. And we appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Vicki, thanks for that shout out. Anybody have anything else they want to share with the group? Then I think it's time for a wrap. As always, we hope that you enjoyed the podcast, and we'll see you all next week. Say goodnight, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Hey, from the Pickleball crew, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next week. Well, that's it for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave any comments and please like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks again and see you next week.